Hey, so on Monday I finally got diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder. The short version of what that means, I fit the criteria because I don't want or enjoy close relationships. I tend to choose solitary activities. I'm asexual. I have anhedonia. I don't really have close friends outside family, like maybe one. um, I don't really care what society thinks of me, so praise and criticism, I really don't react in the sort of normal way. I live excessively inside my head, so introspection, and in the past, thinking a lot of fantasy, imaginary kinds of stuff, except that's gotten a bit numb over time, which is like everything else about me. And yeah, I can also be emotionally flat and detached. And none of this is because of social anxiety or like autism. People with autism, they have sensory issues and they don't always understand body language. And so that's quite a different thing. And there was a time when people thought maybe I would have autism, but those are key differences, right? Yeah, so basically, I just don't have the normal capacity to care. Now, it's important to know, so it's called schizoid personality disorder. I know that sounds like schizophrenia, but it's not the same thing. Although it is kind of considered on that spectrum. So the biggest difference, like with schizophrenia, there are two types of symptoms. One is positive symptoms, which is where you take your base human state and you add things to that. So like adding hallucinations. Yeah, those are the positive symptoms of schizophrenia, the more famous and dramatic ones. But there are also negative symptoms of schizophrenia. So that's where you take your sort of, base state of being and you take away things. So, me not feeling proper emotions and all that kind of stuff. Those are negative symptoms. And so if there's any, comparison to schizophrenia, like I have the negative symptoms, but it's not really schizophrenia, it's a personality disorder. There's that's just probably the simplest way of coming up with a difference. And one of the difficult things is with schizophrenia, it's easier to treat the positive symptoms with medication, but they've had a lot of trouble treating the negative symptoms of schizophrenia. And so with schizoid personality disorder, apparently they used to treat it with antipsychotics, but then they realized it wasn't doing anything, so that's not really used for medication. Yeah, so negative symptoms, they're a lot less dramatic than the positive ones, which is why you might not know about them, but they're also much harder to treat. And yeah, so fun. Anyway, so that's like the real basics of schizoid personality disorder. I've made a playlist. If you guys saw my community post, I linked it in there. And so you, like the start of it, I've got the shortest videos that give you basically the criteria from the DSM and also the ICD. And then the next few videos get a little bit more detailed. Then there's one from the perspective of someone with schizoid personality disorder. After that, video number 6, okay, if you don't want to watch too much, video number 6 basically explains how I experience the world. And he's also a musician, and so like I was watching that going, yeah, that's the same problem I have with music as well right now. So yeah, watch that one if you want to get like a better idea of, basically how I experience the world. After that, there's some videos of a life coach who's explaining the dissociation aspects of schizoid personality disorder, which explains a lot of things for me. And she goes through like ideas about treatment, but there's not really any evidence-based treatment for schizoid personality disorder. Like it's one of those kind of weird niche things, and schizoids don't tend to come forward for treatment, so yeah, there's not a lot of research that can be done if none of us are, out there. Usually the only reason that we would come out is because, we have depression or something and get treated for that. And that's what happened to me is I went into treatment for depression and no one really picked up that I had a bigger issue. So it's taken like 15 years since I first engaged the mental health system to get a proper diagnosis. And yeah, that's kind of annoying. Like it's nice to finally have an explanation for how my life, like why my life has turned out this way. But yeah, 15 years is a long time. I think even for something weird like dissociative identity disorder, most of them get their diagnosis in an average of 7 years. So for me to wait 15 years, I'm like, yeah, great. But also, some of you who've been following my channel for a long time, you'll remember we talked about this more than a decade ago at this point. But the psychologist I was seeing at the time, when I said, hey, I think I've got schizoid personality disorder, she dismissed it on the basis of like one case study that I didn't match. And she didn't really explore with me why I was bringing it up, which, like, I'm not a psychologist. But even I can work out that that's something you should do. Like, come on. So yeah, she dismissed it, and like for a long time I just didn't really think about it again, especially like, in the past few years, autism's really had its profile lifted, and we started to become aware of women with autism who are very good at masking their differences. And yeah, so people were starting to think maybe that's what you have, maybe that's what's wrong with you. Just yeah, I never really connected with it. And like there's some things that are relatable, but a lot that's not. But yeah, for a while that seemed like the most likely thing. So yeah, just didn't think about schizoid personality disorder for a long time. But so how I ended up getting diagnosed, I'm just like, my brain's like, did I miss anything? But I'm looking at the post that I made privately on Facebook to sort of help me get through this. Sorry if I'm like looking over here a lot. But we'll just, whatever that thought was, we'll jump on. So how I got the diagnosis, well, thankfully my GP was able to give it because she's known me for almost as long as I've been in the mental health system, like, on and off. So she's known me a long time. Like, to tell a psychologist everything I've been through, like I've seen so many psychologists and a couple of psychiatrists as well, and none of them figured this out about me. Yeah, also because this isn't really seen out in the wild. So yeah, not many psychologists have experience. Like most psychologists, they just deal with your standard depression, anxiety, relationship issues, anger issues. Yeah. But oh, that was the thing. Yeah, no. So just speaking of autism, and the masking thing, and you might notice if you've watched, there aren't many, but if you've watched other schizoid YouTubers talking, they're not very animated. And I think the reason I'm different is because I've developed a covert presentation. I really recommend reading the Wikipedia. Oh, I've gone way off track. I went into a sidetrack about dissociative identity disorder. There are dissociative aspects in schizoid personality disorder. Maybe not to that extent, but yeah, no, I was talking about the last video on my playlist is about the differences versus autism. Anyway, back up we go. I'm sorry, this is the part of the video where like I tried really hard to be straight to the point at the start of the video, and here is where we got off track. And now I've like completely lost my train of thought again, which if you watch video 6, he loses his train of thought towards the end, and I'm like, even that is relatable. Yeah, but okay, so when you watch other schizoid YouTubers, like I've tracked down a few and watched a few of them, and they're not very animated. And so the reason I was thinking about autism again is because, as I mentioned, there are females who've learned to mask, and I think that's one of the reasons it's been hard to diagnose me, because I've gradually developed a more covert presentation. When I was in high school, I was much more shy and much more withdrawn, and so I had more of an overt presentation, which is more of a stereotypical schizoid personality disorder way of being. But over time, I've learned to talk, and I've learned to, act like I'm just like everyone else when I'm really not. So yeah, that's probably what's made it difficult for me to get a diagnosis. I don't know how long it usually takes for people to be diagnosed, but for me, I mean, I've had issues for ages, and I had depression at least, God, maybe like 20 years ago now. But yeah, no, in hindsight, now that I've got this diagnosis, I can see so much stuff, and just no one's picked it up, and I'm losing my train of thought again. Anyway. Yeah, covert presentation, how I developed the covert presentation. No, I will get to that in a moment. Let's talk about how I got diagnosed. So yeah, my GP's known me a long time, and yeah, so like she didn't know about schizoid personality disorder either, but I've been super frustrated. I've had a really rough time. If you guys have seen my videos about medication and all that kind of crap that I've been trying to get through. And she's seen me go through all that. Therapy hasn't worked, medication hasn't worked, what else am I supposed to do? Like, there's more extreme stuff after that I'm not prepared to do. But yeah, so I think late last year I was talking to my doctor about how I wanted to really like focus on getting a diagnosis, figure out what's wrong with me, because it's very clear that depression was not the only thing wrong with me, and I wanted to figure that out because I'm tired of my life being this mess. And I'm at that point with my mood where I finally quit the finance job. I just can't do it anymore. So I'm still doing bonsai because I think that's good for me, but yeah, Anyway, so, Centrelink told me to get a medical certificate, and so I was talking to my doctor about that, and I'm like, yeah, I really need to get a diagnosis. And I mentioned at the end, like, I don't know what it is, like, maybe it's autism or something else, but, we in the past with a psychologist, we ruled out schizoid personality disorder, and blah, 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 went on my way, and then in the meantime, I was actually looking up, like, I was really unhappy about not being able to get help, not knowing where to go next. So I was Googling, different mental health services, what are my alternatives, ended up on a sidetrack into dissociation, and there was this one page where at the top they explained dissociation, like the basic ideas of it, then they had an article on dissociative identity disorder, and I was reading that, and I'm like, yeah, and then at the bottom they had schizoid personality disorder, and I did not expect to see that on a thing about dissociation. So I was just like, oh, and I went back to Wikipedia, looked it up and read it, and I was just like, oh my god. And I realized, like, that psychologist who ruled it out, she was wrong about everything with me. Like, the thing she said to try and, like, when I went in and told her I was asexual, her first thing she said was, are you sure you're not just gay? Like, that was her attitude. I mean, this was a while back. Maybe she's changed. Maybe she's learned more. There's more awareness about these kinds of things nowadays. But, yeah, that's how she responded. And then when I tried dating, she was super smug. And then when that relationship turned out to be abusive, she was trying to get me to stay with the guy by saying, oh, at least you're not bored when you're with him or something. I'm like, yeah, but like toxic drama? I didn't really know what to do with that at the time. And then the last time I saw her, like, I had been keeping track of my moods on an app, and also keeping track of my physical health on an app, and I showed these to her, and instead of understanding that it was about me documenting my progress, she thought I was checking and it was an anxiety thing and made me do this anxiety exercise, even though I told her, no, that's not my problem. And at the end she asked, was that helpful? I said no, and I never went back. So she was wrong about so many things with me. I'm like, reading Wikipedia, I'm like, why did I believe her for so long that this didn't apply to me? Because I'm looking at it going like, this explains my life. I printed out the Wikipedia article and started highlighting. So the yellow is like maybe or interesting, pink is yes, that's definitely me, and then for things that aren't me, I used red pen to cross out. And like, there's almost nothing I crossed out. There are a few things I put notes in pencil, if I didn't completely agree with something, or if I didn't quite understand, or if I was trying to clarify. There's just so much in this that I like. It's really hard to see with the line on, but yeah, I'm just going through it like, this explains my entire life. So yeah, I printed it out, highlighted it, and I took it in to see my GP. And, I told her the medication didn't work. And then I was like, but I think I've worked out the problem. I think I have schizoid personality disorder. And then it turned out that she had actually been thinking about it since I mentioned it previously, because I'd said that it'd been ruled out. She must have never heard of schizoid personality disorder before, or never really looked into it. And so in the meantime, she had actually looked it up, seen what the diagnostic criteria was. I think she uses DSM, and just been like, oh, that's what it is. And so, we talked about it and agreed, yeah, that's what it is. Like, all this time, looking at all this kind of stuff, and I didn't even have to prompt her. She said, yeah, this is probably why medication hasn't worked for you. Like, it's all the wrong approach. Like, I didn't even have to bring that up. So I know now that she was definitely looking up. She's not just saying she looked it up. She actually did, and has realized that I've been treated the wrong way. For 15 years, people have not been handling me right, because, so it's a relief to get the diagnosis, just in the sense that I now know why my life is like that. Like, I was a high achiever in school. I was like, anytime I've done things academic, I get high marks. I was actually surprised to get high marks in art even because I wasn't so good at that in school, but hey, I was like the maths kid. Maths and science, like I used to do really well. Also, like, I've had financial stability with my family. Like, my family have been pretty stable with that. So I haven't had, like, I guess, socioeconomic struggles. So you'd think that I should be pretty well set up to have a good life. But, okay, so depressing stuff with this diagnosis. Like, if you look at the Wikipedia article, treatment not yet studied. And then prognosis typically poor. And where is the quote? Oh dear. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in this that is just... Anyway, so schizoid personality disorder is linked to negative outcomes, including a significantly compromised quality of life, reduced overall function even after 15 years, and one of the lowest levels of life success of all personality disorders, life success being defined as status, wealth, and successful relationships. So that's pretty grim. But at least now I can stop blaming myself. Like, it's not my fault. I just have this disorder that, despite everything that I've tried, I'm getting a little bit emotional. Yeah, I just was like, not gonna get very far. I didn't mean to start. Sorry. Since that massive depressive episode about 5 years ago, I tend to tear up pretty quickly when I think about it too much. So, hey guys, look at me showing emotions that aren't fake. Because, yeah, if you've seen my Punk Rave Australia videos, I'm very animated. Like, I have a fashion persona. And, like, it's not that I am being dishonest in those videos. Like, I think I'm genuinely interested in the fashion. It's just that I can't connect to the emotions properly. Yeah, and I just know how to present myself in that way. Like, this is the covert thing, right? And actually, if you, just to go back to that life coach, so there's 4 videos from the life coach looking at the dissociation stuff, and one of the interesting things she talks about, which is also in the Wikipedia article, but I didn't understand it until I looked at the life coach talking about it, is the idea of the false self and the true self. So that may even explain my experience of the destroyer kind of thing, for those of you who know that part of me. And, that probably ties into the fantasy side of this as well. Yeah, just, oh God, there's so much that suddenly makes sense. And then I keep thinking of things and I'm like, oh shit, and that's why I did this. And like I even understand why my band Rainbow Death Ray turned out the way it was. Oh man, like, just so much stuff to think about. But yeah, anyway, so it's a pretty grim diagnosis in that sense. But one thing that might be a positive, so here that says, and this explains a lot about me as well, suicide may be a running mental theme for schizoid individuals, though they are not likely to actually attempt it. That explains, like, like, for the amount that I've thought about it, like, whether I've been depressed or not, I think about it, and I've never attempted. I've never even self-harmed. I have, like, in the past tried to poke myself with a sewing needle and I couldn't do it. I don't know if that's schizoid or if it's just me being squeamish. But yeah, no. Yeah, I think about suicide a lot, but I have never tried anything, and it sounds like I'm unlikely to try anything. Now, there are schizoids who have attempted, and maybe that's why they even found out they had the condition. Because, yeah, they would have been taken in and assessed and all that. But, yeah, no, so I guess that's sort of a positive. I mean, I don't like the idea of being trapped here with a disorder that is apparently incurable as far as we know. And maybe my life isn't going to get any better. The Centrelink lady that I talked to last year, like, she said, maybe you should apply for the disability pension. And at the time, I thought all I had was depression. And I thought, that's ridiculous. My brother's disabled. He's physically and intellectually challenged in such a way that he definitely needs to be on disability pension. So, like, at the time I was like, there's no way I would qualify, I would ever fit. But now that I have this diagnosis, I'm like, shit, I might actually get to that point, especially if this keeps going where I keep getting emptier and emptier as time goes on. I might get to that point, which is just like, it's a bit of a shock to realize. But yeah, wow, just so much makes sense. Anyway, let me just quick look through my Facebook notes to see if there's anything I should mention now. I mean, we're almost up to 20 minutes because I keep getting distracted and going on tangents and whatever. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys, like, you know, the latest on what my life's like, what's going on with me. I'm just like, wow. Finally got a diagnosis. And, you know, I could have had this diagnosis, you know, after maybe 2 or 3 years if that psychologist hadn't gaslit me, I guess. And, you know, treated me like an idiot, treated me like I didn't know what was going on in my head. Because, like, schizoid is very in your head. Like, some of the things, if you read the Wikipedia, I don't actually know if you guys will, some of you who've been watching me the longest, maybe you'll get it, but some of you newer guys, you might not see some of the stuff that I fit just because so much of it is my internal experience and things that so there's that, I feel like I just had a thought escape again. I don't know, just, there's so much stuff. Oh, I was going to explain how I became a covert schizoid rather than overt. Okay, we'll go through that quickly. So I really think the two main things that helped is when I got out of school, I got my job at McDonald's. And so that like, you know, I did have social anxiety when I was younger. Now I don't. I just whatever. Maybe talking on the phone, if I have to make a phone call, sometimes I get a little bit, but that's gotten numb too. Receiving phone calls not really an issue. I don't know. I don't really have social anxiety. It's just like when I'm around people, sometimes I just, you know, if someone's not actively trying to talk to me, sometimes I won't bother. Like, I'm not going to approach people because it's just like, what's the point? But yeah, anyway, so working, my first job I ever had when I got out of school was at McDonald's, and I had a really good manager. And so when he was showing me how to do front counter stuff, first I stood next to him and he served customers. Then once, you know, I sort of got the idea, he stood next to me while I served customers. And then when I got comfortable with that, he hid below the bench, so it looked like I was there on my own, but I wasn't, and I was serving customers. And then once I was good, he left, and then I was serving customers. And so I got, you know, used to interacting with the public. And I think what's really important is I also learned that there's a script to socializing. And so I didn't, like, you know, schizoid, if you look at the false self, true self stuff, you sort of hide who you really are. And so I started doing more of the false self stuff with a bit more confidence, like, you know, here's my McDonald's persona. And I feel like I've gone from persona to persona. You know, this might explain why, you know, when I look back at my life, I'm disconnected from my memories, like past versions of me, maybe because I'm constantly manufacturing false personas to deal with the world. I don't know. Like, see, there's so much to think about. It's crazy. Anyway, the other thing that I think helped me become more covert and more expressive is probably YouTube, because I started this in 2008. So yeah, I've been here a long time, and I also was like, that's when I first started. I think my earliest antidepressant videos are still up, and those made me behave in such crazy ways because I was so agitated all the time. And then, yeah, just getting practice talking to a camera, because a camera is not like talking to a person. I do have a camera persona that's sort of changed over time. Yeah, and then I also, like, so that's how I think those are the two main things that helped me go from being an overt schizoid to a covert schizoid. So yeah, now I can just go out there, and some of you guys might have seen on either Facebook or Instagram, I won some money with a local competition, and I was just talking to the lady easy, like, you know, when she saw me, like, I was dressed up in full freak mode, I had my little cat ears and my cat mask, and yeah, I was just like fully decked out, because we were taking a photo for their Facebook page, and I'm like, this is going up, oh yeah, I am going to show them what a freak I am. I like messing with people. That's, you know, I've got to try and find some way to have some fun, right? Especially because I don't feel very much. But yeah, so when she found me, I don't know what she was expecting, but she was like, you know, she was really cool about it, and we were waiting for the business owner, so that we could take a photo with him. And while we were waiting, like, you know, she was kind of quiet, so I was just like, oh yeah, no, this is where I bought the socks for my brother, and I like blah blah blah. And then she sort of opened up a bit more, and I was able to carry on that conversation. And I mean, I guess it helps that I think she was like sort of secretly envious of the fact that I can just do whatever I want, that I don't give a crap what people think of me. Because she said later that, you know, she wishes she could do purple hair, but, you know, I guess being a proper mum and all this kind of stuff and trying to look a certain way, yeah, it's funny how normal people won't do those things. But anyway, yeah, no, like I can talk to people. I've gotten good at it. Like I mean, it depends. The Christmas party with my family, like, that was a little bit tricky because, like, you know, sitting at the table, I'm really bad at choosing a good spot to sit, and I ended up in this weird little sort of black hole. But then my uncle sort of turned around after a while and started talking to me, and then I could have a good conversation. Yeah, so like sometimes approaching people is difficult. But like it doesn't bother me if no one talks to me. Like I know it looks weird and I'm like, maybe I should try and talk to someone just so that no one worries about me. But otherwise I was just sitting there eating my food until someone did talk, and then I'm like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I said I was trying to wrap up the video and then I went on that. Anyway, but I think like probably if any schizoids are watching this, wondering for advice, I don't know if that would help you necessarily because, you know, we're all different. And the other thing is I have this strong suspicion that when I was younger, I was already like on a trajectory to become a performer. Like I've always had a big ego and I did do performance things when I was younger, and that might be part of my like true self. And so maybe as I've become more covert, I've been able to bring parts of that performer personality into my presentation. And so maybe that's why it's easier for me to get out there and be like, hey, and whatever, and like, you know, be a musician, get on stage, all this kind of stuff. Although like it's so hard to focus on music, it's so hard to focus on anything. I have all these ideas, all these great creative ideas, but actually doing them, I get too numb before I can put in the effort. So it's getting harder. But yeah, I think, you know, it probably also explains why I jumped from hobby to hobby, because I would get an idea that something was fun, I would try it, and then I would quickly lose interest with the anhedonia kicking in. So then I'd try the next thing, and the same pattern just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. And now I've tried so many things that my brain sort of turned down that hope. Anyway, yeah, so I don't know, like I don't know for sure if I'm interpreting myself the right way, but there's just so much to think about. Let me get back to this stuff and just check that I haven't missed anything that I want to talk about right now. Oh, how did I become schizoid? Oh my god. Maybe I should have just live streamed because this could go on for an hour. But yeah, so like the life coach talking about dissociation, she talks about like childhood abuse, and they probably don't know what causes it, but it seems like childhood issues can be a thing, and it is a thing in a lot of disorders. But so I was never abused. What I think happened is, so my youngest brother, he's got disabilities, and when he had his first seizure, I would have been a bit over 3 years old, maybe 3.5, maybe close to 4. So I would have been just old enough to have, you know, gotten into a pattern of like, here's my perfect little life. I'm an only child. Okay, now I have a brother, but like, you know, everything's fine. We're a happy, normal family. And then my other brother comes along, has this issue. Suddenly, all my normal family life is just swept away. My parents, I don't know exactly what happened at the time. Like I have the vaguest memory of that first seizure, but what happened right after that, I don't know. My parents, I assume, probably, you know, rushed to hospital, and I think me and my other brother, we were sent to live with my grandparents for a little bit. And so I might have, like, you know, as a 3-year-old, being able to understand normal family life, having that taken away, and I might have had like that feeling of abandonment, and you know, there's like this talk of abandonment depression, and I'm like, maybe that's what I experienced. And then once they found out what happened to my brother, and you know, started to get into a pattern of, you know, having a disabled kid, that you know, his needs sort of take precedence because he has such strong needs. And so my feeling of abandonment, like, you know, here's the kid that we put all the focus on, yeah, my feeling probably would have been reinforced throughout childhood, because like we did have to make sacrifices. There's a lot of things about our family that changed because, you know, having a disabled person in the family. Now my other brother, he doesn't have any disorders as far as we're aware. You know, he's just a little bit insecure sometimes. So he would have been maybe 1 year old, like 2 at the most. So yeah, like it would have been a little bit too early for him to really register that such a massive change had happened to our family. So, it might have affected him a little bit, but not enough to be a disorder. So yeah, I think that's what happened. That's probably where the schizoid comes from. And, my whole childhood, even with all the achievements that I made, like I got 100% on a test, but here's the kid that we've got to focus all our attention on, stuff like that. And as a kid, you're trying to understand that. And it doesn't make sense. And then I did develop that sort of self-sufficiency early on. I think that's the right word. And yeah, so like I would try and do things for myself, rather than asking my parents for help. And I guess being a high achiever probably added to that, because I could do things for myself. And then like even things like in year 6, my teacher wanted me to do this extra math stuff, and I hadn't asked my parents because I thought they couldn't drive me to school early to do it. And so my teacher actually talked to my parents and was like, why isn't she doing this program? And they're like, what? We never heard about this. And they're like, why didn't you tell us? And I'm like, I didn't think it would be okay, like things like that. And it's just all this like automatic self-sacrifice and sort of denying my own needs, I guess, and just being disconnected from what I want in life and disconnected from the emotions and all that. I think all that kind of builds into it. It's like there's so much that like, yeah, just having this diagnosis. Anyway, yeah, so what's happening next now that I have this diagnosis, but poor treatment and life outcomes? I don't have a lot of options, but my GP is trying to find a psychologist that I can see in person, because I think if I did telehealth, I don't even have the privacy most of the time. I've had to wait for everyone to go to bed and my other brother to be out to be able to film this, and it's taken a while because I've not been able to concentrate. But anyway, my dad's like, oh, we could all leave the house whenever you have a telehealth. But I suspect, because I'm so used to talking to a camera, I would present with my on-camera persona, and that would get mixed up with my therapy persona. And I don't think it would go well, even if I could have the privacy I need. So I need to see someone in person. My GP's trying to find someone. We're having a massive COVID outbreak at the moment, so it might be a few months before I can even get in to see anyone. I'm prepared for that. But yeah, my GP's trying to find someone who at least even knows this exists and won't treat me like the same shit. No guarantee we'll find anyone. I'm also probably going to send off some emails to, like sane.org or, those kinds of people, and see if anyone knows. If my GP wasn't going to give me this diagnosis, my plan B was to go and get an autism assessment for like $2,000, because once they realize I don't have autism, then they do a differential diagnosis. And I thought maybe they would know who to send me then once they diagnosed me. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I can hit up some autism guys. They might know, but I feel like they won't. Because autism has this huge profile. Schizoid doesn't though. That's something I forgot. Because schizoids, we don't see our view of the world as wrong. I even now that I have this diagnosis and I understand, I still think the world's crap. People are crap. Why put the effort in? I still have a lot of that same stuff, and that's not changing because I can't feel anything different, I guess. And I feel like my position is fairly logical. And same thing with my ideas about suicide. I'm like, yeah, I think there's no reason to stick around here, but I'm not going to do anything about it, which is an interesting thing. But yeah, no, so a lot of schizoids don't come forward for treatment, probably don't even know they're schizoid. So yeah, there's not many professionals who have any experience. If maybe they've read about it once a long time ago, but not many actually turn up in clinical practice. So will I find anyone? I don't know. Maybe the best I can hope for is to find someone who's open and will try and understand and not treat me with, normal depression stuff that doesn't work. Yeah, I don't know. Otherwise, I'll just... Sorry, I breathed in a little bit too much air. Yeah, anyway, I guess the only other thing I can do is sit down and do more introspection about my life. Maybe introspection, maybe I'm doing too much of it, but I feel like to figure out my life, that's what I need to do, is just look at myself, where I've been, and sort of untangle all this stuff that finally makes sense, and maybe I'll find some answers there. The life coach also, on those YouTube videos, she had some interesting ideas, in terms of dissociation. I don't know if I dissociate enough in the right way, but she's getting in touch with your body, so doing exercise. I don't like exercise, but, swimming. I can't go swimming with this hair, but maybe I can. Yeah, no, just like the problem is I have no motivation to exercise. But yeah, no, and she had some like interesting things about the true self, false self. So yeah, I don't know, but I have like a framework to understand myself now. So that's the thing. Um, Another thing, so one thing that I think has helped with my covert presentation is I'm very open about depression. Because depression is one of the normal problems I have. Like, heaps of people have depression, it's really well known. So if I am completely open about my depression, I can hide from people the fact that I have deeper issues. So this is something that I think I've been doing subconsciously, although I can sort of see in my mind how I might have like half been conscious of it. And like maybe I do this with other things as well, is like you present something that is a problem, but and people are like, oh no, but they're distracted by that, so you can hide your bigger problems. And maybe that's something I've been doing. Like, when I try to talk about destroyer stuff and I get very self-conscious, maybe that's one of those things I'm trying to hide. And like I don't know, I sort of lost my train of thought there, but like just hiding behind different things. And maybe now that I know that, maybe I can actually explore more of what's going on in my head. I don't know. But yeah, using smaller issues to hide bigger ones. Clever trick of my subconscious. Explains a lot of the contradictions with me. All this kinds of stuff. What else? Yeah, I told people I'm going to be less social for a bit. I'm like, I have this diagnosis now. I might as well just own it rather than, once when lockdown ended, before they let the anti-vaxxers out, I was going to some gigs, and I think because, I came off that vibe of Hallow Scream, like I had the adrenaline, which I was going to make a video about adrenaline and anhedonia, but I think we'll have to leave that for another day. But yeah, I was coming off the adrenaline of Hallow Scream, and I thought I want to try and keep doing things with life so that I don't lose this momentum. So I made myself go to gigs, and I think that, yeah, I couldn't keep it up, and I think I was pushing myself too hard, and I ended up feeling worse at the end of it. And so now I'm like, well, I'm officially schizoid. I just won't go out unless I feel like it. Like, I'm gonna do what I feel like now. It's not my fault. It's not my fault for not trying. This is just how I am. I will try and work with myself better, be kinder to myself. So yes, I'll try to go out, but I'm not going to force myself to go out, if that makes sense. So yeah, I told people I'm not going to go out. Like, COVID or no COVID, we've got a huge outbreak at the moment. Oh, our leaders are so terrible. Like, don't get me started. But yeah, less pressure on myself, less frustration with myself for not doing things. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, be gentler with myself. I want to try and learn how to socialize better without losing myself to the facade, is what I've written, without putting on a persona, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to do. Like, I know everyone behaves differently in different situations, but I feel like for me it's much more compartmentalized, and I can see things where I'm just hiding stuff, maybe doing things I don't necessarily want to, like Rainbow Death Ray. There's so much about that. Maybe I'll make a video just about that one day, I don't know. But yeah, so some Schizoid also explains why socializing online is easier for me, maybe explains why I can do YouTube, and then, like, when I'm in the real world, I'm nowhere near this animated unless I'm with that, like, one friend that I can really, like, let loose with. Although, like, I think I'm okay at talking to people with a bit more energy, so I don't know, I'm getting confused about myself. But yeah, I definitely prefer online, especially if I'm like talking to people for a long time. If I'm physically with people for a long time, I get tired faster. I think online socialing is probably why I don't experience loneliness anymore. Like, I definitely had that when I was younger, but now I can keep everyone at a distance without completely losing touch. I think one of the reasons, though, like, that I am just less honest on YouTube, like talking about destroyer stuff again, okay? People know who I am now. I've lost anonymity. And apparently being anonymous online, schizoids do open up, and so I've lost that. But I have too much ego to go back and, like, make a new username. No, I'm Destroy Mariko now. And I know that people mishear that as Destroy America instead of Destroyer Mariko. I don't know, maybe I need to pronounce it differently. Yeah, Rainbow Death Ray explains things about my past relationships, explains why I'm so close to Hope. Like when he got sick, I noticed things that the vets were like, how did you even notice that? So schizoids are better at socializing with animals, I guess, because you eliminate a lot of the human bullshit. Yeah, and pets don't let you down in the way that a human does. Like, oh my god, we're up to 40 minutes. But yeah, no, like problems trying to find a band, right? A lot of that is just reinforcing my disdain for humanity. Like, I can't really trust people because they're dumb, like, legitimately. I've tried to start bands with people and it's just like, oh my god, how do you guys tie your shoelaces in the morning, you know? So a lot of that's getting reinforced. But you know, what if my perspective is logical? How are you going to treat me then? I mean, it certainly feels logical. I guess when you have emotions, you default to this cold logic and then you end up miserable. Anyway, yeah, oh, the weirdest thing is schizoids apparently a lot of schizoids are low weight or underweight, and that may finally explain why I'm so small. Like I managed to put on some weight finally. I used to be really small. But yeah, I was surprised. Like, since I first read that, since I first brought it up with a psychologist, this research hadn't been done. I think in 2012 and maybe 2019, they've done some research and realized that schizoids tend to be underweight. They don't know for sure why that is, but they suspect because of anhedonia, we don't enjoy food in quite the way that other people do, so we don't eat as much. Maybe just eat as much as you have to, and so maybe that's why I'm low weight. Not underweight anymore, thankfully. I've managed to just fit into healthy weight, but that may explain it. Like, holy crap, it explains so much about me. Are you insane? What? I'm insane, apparently. Although everyone's very careful to say, oh, you're not crazy, you just have a disorder. I'm like, yeah, it's a psychological disorder. Isn't that the definition of crazy? I'm not offended by the idea that I might be crazy. I just, you know, there's so many people who get upset when their condition is considered a mental illness or a disorder. And I'm like, but you only think that because of stigma. And if we just stop thinking like that, you know, get rid of the stigma, it's just words, right? I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the progression of me as a schizoid might explain why I keep losing interest in things and I'm gradually becoming super numb. Yeah, and like my creativity, and now I'm mostly working with plants. And what I've written here, okay, so bonsai is creative, but you see very little of me in it. I have some stylistic markers, but otherwise you can't tell anything about me from it. Am I hiding from my own creativity because I don't want to express my true self? I don't know. And I've written that it's something I want to change. I want to actually get back to expressing myself. I think I'll make better art, and maybe I'll actually make art instead of just thinking about it. And you know, maybe one of the things they try with schizoid is art therapy. Maybe that'll help bring me out of that black hole. It's just that I can't get motivated. So in this I've written, sorry I tease the odd thing here and there, like with Rainbow Death Ray. That's part of the condition though. Part of me wants to express everything, but my defenses say no. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, anyway. Oh, okay, and so the last sort of thing that I wrote in this Facebook post that I think is important. Okay, so because I'm a covert schizoid, I might be one of those rare schizoids who can actually raise some awareness. Like I know there are some other schizoids who've made some videos, but most of them, when I've looked at their channels, they've made like 2 videos and then sort of lost interest. You know, maybe half a dozen videos and then lost interest. And yeah, maybe that's a thing, and maybe they feel uncomfortable. There was at least one I watched who seemed to be really uncomfortable about talking on camera. Struggled to keep talking after about 10 minutes, saying I haven't talked this long in ages, and here I am, 43 minutes in, and I can keep talking. I guess being a vocalist, though, I'm used to using my voice. But yeah, so I've sort of thought, like, should I be one of those awareness raising people, because it is so unknown. Like, autism gets all the attention. And then this one, no, because none of us want to talk about it. But I don't know if I have that enough interest. Like, you know, some channels will dedicate themselves to a cause. I don't think I could do that. You've already seen how chaotic my channel is. I just do whatever I feel like at the time. Yeah. So I don't know if I can do the awareness raising thing. Maybe this video counts as awareness, but as a regular thing, I don't know. And I just lose interest in stuff easily. I also don't want it to be like this huge part of my identity, because I don't have an identity. Not really, not in the way other people talk about it. So yeah, I don't know. I have mixed feelings because I feel like maybe I should because I can talk, but do I want to? Um, yeah, and then so something unlike with autism. So there's a lot of autism advocates, but one thing I'm relieved to find out is that schizoids are really a lot less inclined to form communities and support groups, because I guess we're all too schizoid for that shit. We don't really congregate. I think there are some forums I've noticed where schizoids will talk together a bit, but yeah, we don't really do the whole community thing. Like I've seen the inside of autistic communities on Facebook, and it didn't feel good to me. But yeah, and that might explain why I don't really do communities. And that's the thing, like if I try to become an awareness advocate for schizoid, I don't really want lots of schizoids, coming to me or anything. I don't want to be in a group or a community. I think that's too much. I can talk about it, but I don't want to hang out with anyone. But thankfully, it sounds like schizoids don't want to hang out with me either. We just keep to ourselves. So I like that. And this may explain why I don't understand other people's communities, like these, like autism or, gender communities and stuff. And that might explain why I didn't fit into the ace community, the asexual community. I mean, they were crazy enough as it is. Like, especially the one that I was in the most. I was just like watching the arguments going like, you people, I don't get it. Bickering amongst themselves, all the drama. Yeah, I don't know, but like I was probably never going to fit anyway because I'm not a community person. I'm too schizoid for that. Just rather like people leave me the fuck alone. So yeah, maybe my misanthropy makes sense. And I ended I said fuck fuck you all, you nonsensical humans, and did a little kiss emoji to my Facebook guys. But yeah, no, my Facebook guys, they get it. And now I have an explanation for why I am the way I am, why I'm insensitive. Like, when celebrities die and I'm just like, I don't care. And, New Year, I don't care. It's just another day. So much makes sense. Anyway, let's keep this under an hour. And I've rambled a lot. I hope things made sense. Maybe at some point, like, I'll do a live stream so that you can ask me more specific questions if I can, I might not have answers. Like, I only found this out on Monday. It's now Friday, so I haven't had a lot of time to think about it. But just, like, straight away. I mean, I guess I was thinking about it before when I looked up the Wikipedia, but now that it's confirmed, I'm just like, so much of my life makes sense. Yeah. But, like, just in case I don't really want to do a Q&A live stream, you can comment some questions if you even got to this point in the video, because I know I can go on and on and on. Yeah, and then, I don't know, I gotta figure out my life, don't I? But I also have more Punk Rave Australia to edit, and then after that, I've got another video to make, and anyway, yeah. So that's where my life's at. It's a little bit grim because, like, how am I going to solve my life? Like, yeah, a lot of schizoids don't come forward for treatment because they don't see anything wrong with this worldview, and I don't see anything wrong with the worldview either. But my problem, the reason I'm interested in maybe not changing, but in dealing with it better, the reason I'm interested in treatment is because I've had the depression going along with it, and I can see that I'm wasting my life and that I am capable of more. It's just like, how do I access that? I used to do so much stuff. I used to try so much stuff, and I'm just so empty now, and I'm so disconnected from my past selves. I'm just like, who was that girl who managed to do all this stuff? And I'm like, I want to be able to do some of that. Like, I was definitely unstable. But, I'm hoping that I can get back some of that more creativity, engaging with life, just doing more with my life. But I've accepted in terms of survival, like, I'm probably always going to be dependent on my family for help, and maybe one day I will end up on the disability pension. I wouldn't have qualified before because I didn't have that diagnosis. Now I am fully diagnosed. Now I just have to meet the other criteria, fully treated and stabilized, maybe there's no treatment, so I just need to get it to a point where, like, this is as stable as I'm gonna get. Stable, guys. And then we'll just see what happens. Yeah, so there's some upsetting stuff, but at least I can explain it. I don't have to blame myself anymore. Because, yeah, I think as much as you say you don't blame yourself, sometimes you do. But it's not my fault. I have this disorder that's very difficult, so... Yeah, I don't know where my life's going to go, but I'm trying to, like, sort of reassess everything with this in mind, and that's where I'm at. Yeah, I think I'm done. 50 minutes. That's a damn good long video. I'm sorry I haven't been around much for a bit. There's just so much going on.